What is the Fighting Oligarchy Tour, and why is this movement gaining momentum now? The Fighting Oligarchy Tour, spearheaded by Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is not just another political rally series, it's a direct challenge to America's entrenched economic and political elite. It aims to reignite the progressive movement by taking on issues like corporate greed, wealth inequality, and political corruption. Launched amid growing frustration over rising living costs, stagnant wages, and perceived government inaction, the tour taps into deep-rooted anger across multiple demographics. Sanders and AOC frame it not as partisan warfare, but as a populist struggle against oligarchic control. The timing couldn't be more critical. With trust in institutions at an all-time low, Americans across the spectrum are looking for alternatives to traditional politics. The tour hopes to channel that energy into progressive electoral victories and policy shifts. However, critics argue that the rhetoric may further polarize an already divided electorate, pushing moderates and independents away, rather than building coalitions necessary for lasting change. We'll explore whether the Fighting Oligarchy Tour represents a genuine new movement, or a flashpoint that could reshape the American political landscape for better or worse. Is this movement focused more on delivering great messaging, or is it focused on making measurable change for Americans? At its heart, the Fighting Oligarchy Tour is built around economic justice. Sanders and AOC emphasize universal health care, student loan forgiveness, stronger labor protections, and corporate tax reform as foundational demands. Beyond policy, the tour seeks to expose how concentrated wealth often becomes an excess of political power. The goal is to awaken citizens to the ways corporate lobbying, campaign financing, and media consolidation can harm true democracy itself. Organizers hope to galvanize grassroots energy by inspiring young voters, working-class Americans, and disillusioned citizens to organize locally, vote in primaries, and support progressive candidates at all levels. The tour also serves as a test platform for building a national coalition that could challenge the centrist dominance in the Democratic Party, hopefully reshaping its platform heading into future elections. Ultimately, its success depends not just on fiery speeches, but on building a strong infrastructure, one made up of local organizers, great voter outreach and engagement that is sustained well beyond the rallies. What impact does framing the system this way have? Calling America an oligarchy is a deliberate choice, because it reframes economic inequality and political corruption, not as isolated issues but as symptoms of a deeper structural rot. This framing taps into a growing sentiment across the political spectrum. Many Americans feel the system is rigged in favor of the wealthy and powerful regardless of party affiliation. By using oligarchy, Sanders and AOC aim to unite diverse grievances under a shared narrative. However, the term carries risks. It alienates moderates who still believe in the American dream narrative. They may reject comparisons to countries traditionally labeled oligarchies like Russia. It also escalates political rhetoric to an existential level, framing elections not just as contests of policy, but as struggles for the soul of democracy itself. This framing is one that demands extraordinary follow-through. Nonetheless, using oligarchy allows the movement to rally supporters emotionally and intellectually, making the stakes feel urgent and unavoidable. Is it possible to unite workers, students, and activists under one movement? One of the movement's biggest challenges is coalition building. While economic inequality touches many lives, the proposed solutions vary drastically across cultural, racial, and regional lines. Young progressives may support student debt cancellation, while older working-class voters might prioritize union protections or healthcare reform. Balancing these priorities without alienating key groups is a delicate dance. There's also the question of tone. Some critics feel the movement's messaging often comes off as moralistic or dismissive of dissent. This could potentially push would-be allies away who might have similar concerns, but differ on methods or pace of change. Building a durable coalition requires more than just shared anger. It demands policy compromises, mutual respect, and the organizational skill to turn great energy into votes and legislative victories. The Fighting Oligarchy Tour's ability to broaden its appeal beyond core progressive circles will likely determine whether it becomes a transformative force or just another factional wave. Could this approach backfire and result in a stronger centrist or conservative coalition? While the tour's intended goal is to energize the progressive base, it could also unintentionally galvanize its opposition. Centrist Democrats may double down on appeals to suburban voters, emphasizing both moderation and stability over total revolution. Republicans, too, could use the movement as a foil, painting it simply as radical socialism to scare away swing voters. This could energize the conservative base heading into critical elections. In swing districts especially, progressive rhetoric can be a liability. Candidates too closely associated with the tour may struggle against moderate or conservative challengers who frame them as out of touch. There's also the risk of internal division. Infighting between progressives and moderates could weaken Democratic electoral chances, handing victories to opponents that are more aligned with corporate interests. Managing these risks requires strategic messaging, candidate vetting, and a disciplined approach to local politics that adjusts to the nuances of many different communities. Are international observers watching this new American progressive push? Progressive movements around the world, like those in Europe, Latin America, and parts of Asia, are paying close attention to the Fighting Oligarchy tour. Many see it as part of a broader global trend against rising inequality and corporate overreach. In countries struggling with similar issues like housing crises, healthcare inequities, and climate inaction, there's admiration for bold political figures that are willing to challenge the economic elites. However, some observers caution that U.S. progressivism carries unique cultural baggage and political constraints. What works rhetorically in America may not map as neatly onto international struggles. There's also a note of skepticism. Can a movement built in the belly of the world's largest capitalist economy genuinely dismantle oligarchic structures without moving to other forms of elite control? Nonetheless, the international resonance of the tour highlights how deeply interconnected global economic justice movements have become in the 21st century. How will we know if the Fighting Oligarchy tour has truly made an impact? Success won't just be measured by crowd sizes or media headlines. It will hinge on tangible political outcomes, winning elections, passing legislation, and shifting public discourse in both positive and measurable ways. Electoral victories, especially in tough districts, would show that a progressive economic message can break through traditional barriers and build broad support. Even without immediate wins, reframing national conversations around inequality, corporate power, and democracy could lay the groundwork for successful future reformers. Failure, on the other hand, could come from either stagnation, rallying the faithful without growing the movement, or worse, from a deepening political cynicism if promises that are made are not matched by the results that are achieved. The tour's legacy depends not just on inspiration but on infrastructure, organizing, funding, candidate recruitment, and strategic discipline at every level. How will mainstream and alternative media shape the tour's success or failure? In today's polarized media environment, narratives are everything. The Fighting Oligarchy tour isn't just battling political opponents, it's battling how it's portrayed on TV, online, and across the social media platforms. Mainstream outlets often frame progressive movements as either inspiring underdog stories or radical threats to national stability. The tone of media coverage can sway public perception dramatically, either by amplifying the tour's message or by casting it as unrealistic and fringe. Right-wing media is already mobilizing against the tour, branding it as socialism wrapped in populist rhetoric. These attacks are not just aimed at progressives, but also at swing voters and moderates that might otherwise sympathize with certain economic messages. At the same time, progressive and independent media are crucial allies. Outlets like The Intercept, Democracy Now!, and podcasts like Breaking Points provide platforms for deeper, less filtered conversations about the movement's goals and challenges. Winning the media battle means not only controlling the narrative and not just reacting to attacks, but also proactively shaping how the tour's message is delivered, interpreted, and defended across every platform. Can this movement bridge divides, or will it deepen them even further? The Fighting Oligarchy tour is a bold gamble, a challenge to the status quo at a moment when American politics feels more fractured than ever. It promises a unifying vision around economic justice, but it risks further deepening the cultural and political divide if mishandled. For progressives, it's an opportunity to prove that transformational politics isn't just a dream, it's a necessity. But success will require more than fiery speeches. It will take coalition building, media savvy, electoral wins, and the patience to build lasting institutions. For moderates and conservatives, the tour might be seen as a threat, or an invitation to address economic pain points they can no longer ignore. Whether they engage, resist, or attempt to redefine the conversation will shape its long-term impact. The real test is whether Sanders, AOC, and their movement can channel anger into action, without alienating the very people they need to persuade. Can they inspire hope instead of fear? And can they build bridges instead of just walls? In the end, the Fighting Oligarchy tour could become a unifying force for a new American majority, or it could become a divisive flashpoint that hardens the lines of conflict even further. The stakes are nothing less than the future of American democracy itself. Will the Fighting Oligarchy tour bring people together or drive them further apart? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell if you care about the direction of America's future. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.